Hey everyone. So, as we continue talking about this idea of what strategy really is and just trying to implement this idea of why it's so important, I think it really does beg the question that about a lot of topics that I get from people, regardless of which classes I teach. But a very valid question to start off with here as well is this one right here. Why would we craft a strategy in the first place? What's the big deal about it, right? Well, a company is, let's start off by just saying this. A company is almost certain to earn significantly higher profits when it has some sort of competitive advantage as opposed to when it competes with no advantage whatsoever, right? And we'll talk a lot more about this idea of competitive advantage, but a firm with no advantage, or even let's say some sort of competitive disadvantage, it's doing something that is like actively hurting it because of something it's unable or unwilling to do. um, a business that runs that way is going to really run the risk of being outperformed by its stronger rivals. Competition and performance is really the name of the game of everything we're talking about this semester. And so without a strategy, we can really only achieve at best really mediocre financial performance, and might even become what we tend to refer to as an industry laggard, somebody that's just behind the game always. So we just want to stress this idea that a creative and distinct strategy, when we have chosen and implemented one, it aims to allow us to compete differently than other people that are potentially vying for like our piece of the pie, right? It does a lot of really important things, right? It can help us to actively avoid conflicting actions, which sometimes we don't realize we're making unless we've crafted a coherent strategy. Or maybe we have inconsistent actions. We do something for a bit, we put it on a shelf, we think that was good enough because we remember a time where we did a little something right here. Or maybe there's just different managers or people, like as our organizations get larger and larger, right? We have multiple people doing things, behaving, doing actions in different ways. They may, unbeknownst to themselves, be doing things that actively work against each other, do not form an aligned, cohesive strategy of actions. And they might just negate the things that each of them are trying to do with good nature, but don't realize that they're acting actively against somebody else's actions at the same time. If we don't have a good strategy in place that people understand and managers can use to implement their actions and behaviors, we got nothing. We're probably all just kind of like winging it out here. We have no idea whether or not our actions are all going to come together in a cohesive way and actually work toward those outcomes that we're trying to achieve. By crafting a good strategy, we are laying that reliable pathway to above average profitability. And I really want to stress this early on. A lot of people come into here, and the competitive nature of, let's say, business students, or the whole idea about, just that competition is the name of the game and strategy, makes everybody think that successful strategy needs to place you at the top of the pack. I want to squash this idea early on, because the way we think about successful performance and a successful strategy is, can you compete and perform at or better than average? That's what we're going for. Can we hit above that middle of the pack, point of performance against the people that we compete against? That's what we're going for. If we are better than average, that's what we're going for. Okay, so keep that idea in mind. We're not necessarily saying that the success or detriment of some strategy we choose is dependent on us being the absolute number one. We're saying, can we get to a place where we perform better than average? And this really important one right here, a good strategy, when we craft one, it will increase that likelihood of producing a competitive advantage over our competitors. We have another short video like talking about this idea of competitive advantage, but in successful companies, the quest for competitive advantage, some competitive edge over other people, something we can do or have access to that other people cannot or do not, that is probably the most important element of crafting a strategy. What can we identify that can give us a gateway to that? What do we already have that might be that sort of advantage? And how can we utilize it in a way others cannot so that we can do the things they cannot? So, it really gets us to this idea, why we stress strategy so much. Well, clearly, a firm's management has to proactively shape how that business is going to be productive, as I say here. Right? A clear and reasoned strategy is going to be management's, let's say, their roadmap or their prescription for doing business, right? It's that roadmap to a competitive advantage, and it is our game plan for pleasing our customers, offering them something they value, and improving our financial performance. So our really high performing enterprises are always going to be the product of a really astute, creative, proactive, strategy making environment. Okay. Firms do not get to the top of their industries ever or stay there by having some flawed or copycatted strategy. So, strategies built around really timid actions or, like built on, ground that's not so solid, they may get us where we're trying to go in the short run, but they're definitely not going to hold up the test of time and really be what we're looking for from a strategy as a really competitive firm. And that's really what we're going for with all of this. So all strategies we want to keep in mind, even the absolute best ones, they are going to be worthless if they're not implemented correctly. And so this is why we stress strategy so much. As we said, a strategy is going to be our management's roadmap for making the right decisions that align with one another and take our company to the next level. So every single strategy is worthless, even if you put the best one forward and you can't implement it correctly. This is why strategy is so important. And this is why, as we'll find out later, it's so important that we stress its importance and make sure that our managers understand the elements of it clearly so they can help carry this thing out. Because without that consistent strategy execution, no firm is ever going to perform close to its potential. And we are all about exceeding, at least meeting, but hopefully exceeding our potential. So if we try to implement some sort of flawed implementation, some plan or strategy that just really isn't doing it, it's really inept, it's something that's not really going to work out or not well thought out, it's basically our guaranteed pathway to underachievement. Okay, that's not what we're going for. As hopefully you've gathered by how much I've stressed it in our first couple videos, what we're all about here is competition and performance. Those are our names of the game. So this essentially underlines why we stress strategy so much.